So we would read this as 3. I'm multiplying 3 times the 2x, and I'm multiplying 3 times 4. I'm multiplying whatever's outside the bracket. Okay, it's 3 multiplied by everything inside the bracket, right? So what's the first step here? I need to take 3 and multiply it by 2x. We have 2 x's, and I'm multiplying that by 3. 3 times 2 x's will give me, well, what's 3 times 2? 6 x's. Okay, so that's the first part of this expression. Now I need to take 3 because it's outside the bracket. Whenever you have a number in front of a bracket, you have to distribute. This is called distributive law. Distribute that over everything inside the bracket. So what's the second term inside the bracket? Positive 4. Don't forget to include the sign. So it's going to be 3 times 4. What's 3 times positive 4? Positive 12. That's it. That's the answer. Okay, what if I give you this question? 2 times 4x minus 5. So I need to take the 2 and multiply it by what? What's the first step? Yep. 4x. What's 2 times 4x? 8x. Good. And then I'm taking 2 and multiplying it by what? Negative 5. Remember, the sign is part of the term. What's positive times a negative? Negative 10. That's it. Okay, so in this question, the term outside the bracket has a power. The term is 3x to the power of 2. I need to take that term and multiply it by everything, every term inside the bracket. So I have 2x to the power of 3 is the first term, positive 4x is the second term, and what's the third term? Negative 5. Okay? Whenever you have a term that has a coefficient, we talked about that, it's a number in front of the variable. I have a coefficient and a variable and an exponent. Just do it in order. Let's start with the coefficient, okay? We're going to multiply the coefficients together. So what's 3 times 2? Yep. 6. That's the first part. 3 times 2 is 6, but it's 3x squared times 2x to the power of 3. So how would I multiply x squared times x to the power of 3? This goes back to our exponent laws. When we're multiplying powers, what do? Add the exponents. Good. Multiplying powers with the same base, we add the exponent. So this would be 6x to the power of, good. Okay? For the second term, so I'm taking the term outside the bracket, distributing it to the second term inside the bracket. Positive 4x is to the power of what? Please don't forget that it's to the power of 1. So put the number 1 there. Okay, and the first thing we need to do is multiply the coefficients, so the numerical part. 3 times 4, positive 4 is what? Positive 12. And then we have x to the power of 2 times x to the power of 1 becomes what? X to the power of 3. Good. Okay, and now the last thing we need to distribute, the last term, same thing, 3x squared times what? What's the last term in the bracket, Vince? Don't forget the sign, it's negative 5. Well, is there a variable here? Is there an exponent? So we just do 3 times 5, negative 5 is what? Negative 15, and we have to include this x squared. That x squared is not getting multiplied by anything, so it's just negative 15x squared. And is this simplified? Can I add 6x to the power of 5 plus 12x to the power of 3? Can I add those together? No, why not?
They don't have the same exponent.
They don't have the same exponent. Remember we did this last week? If they don't have the same exponent, they're not like terms. This is to the power of 2, so this is it. We're done. This is simplified. This is the simplified expression. This is the shortest we can make this. Okay? So all we did was we expand, and it's simplified now. We've expanded this expression, and we can't simplify it anymore. So that's it. We're done. That's the answer. The very first thing we want to do is expand. Whenever you see brackets and there's a term in front of the bracket, we want to expand that. We want to get rid of the brackets. So we need to multiply 2 times what? Okay, and then 2 times positive 1. That's the first part. Then we have another bracket at the end of this sentence. I have a positive 3, and I need to distribute that over everything inside the bracket that's next to. Okay, so let's do it step by step. So what's my first term going to be? 2 times 3x equals, are you sure? 6x, and then what? And then 2 times positive 1 is what? What's 2 times positive 1? Positive 2. Please include the sign when you're doing it. Good. Positive 3 times x is equal to what? Positive 3x. And then, Rajal, keep going. Positive 3 times negative 4 is what? Negative 12. Okay, so that's the first step. We expanded. Expanding, we're just using distributive law, and we're getting rid of the brackets. Now what do we have to do? This one, we're not finished now because we actually do have like terms. So what do we have to do with those like terms? So step 2, let's collect our like terms, put them together so it's easier to see which terms can be added together. I have a 6x. Which other term is like 6x? Bless you. Positive 3x. Good. So we have 6x plus 3x. These terms can go together. And then I have a positive 2. Bless you. What can be combined with positive 2? Yep. Negative 12. So all we're doing is we're collecting the like terms and rearranging it. Remember we did this Thursday? Putting them together. Now what's the last step? What do we have to do now? Yes?
6x plus 3x.
We have to, it's called simplify. We actually have to calculate, add or subtract our like terms. So 6x plus 3x equals 2 take away 12 equals negative 10. Is this simplified? Yes, I have 2 terms that are not alike. I can't go any further. The final answer is 9x take away 10. 3x squared, yep, what are we doing with that?
Multiply the inside of the first bracket.
Yes, so let's do the coefficients first. 3 times 4 is?
12.
Okay, and what's x squared times x to the power of 3?
X to the power of 5.
X to the power of 5. Raise your hand if you got the first term right. Good, that's the easy part. Now we have to distribute 3x squared times negative 2x squared. What's positive 3 times negative 2? Negative 6. What's x squared times x squared? X to the power of 2 times x to the power of 2 is x to the power of, good, 4. Same thing, 3x squared times positive 6x to the power of, what's 6x to the power of 1? How many of you remember to write the number 1 there? So you wouldn't forget to add it after. 3 times 6, positive 18. X to the power of 2 times x to the power of 1 is x to the power of 3. Technically, you're taking this negative. I can put a 1 here. It's not going to change it. I'm technically multiplying everything inside this bracket by negative 1. So anytime I multiply a negative times a positive, what does it become? Negative. Okay, the term stays the same, but the sign changes. Negative times a positive is negative. And then we have a negative times a negative becomes positive. Okay, please don't forget that you have to distribute that negative in front of the bracket. Now, because, look here, this is important, because this plus 7x to the power of 5 is not inside a bracket, does anything happen to that? Does it change?
No.
No. So we just write that at the end. Plus 7x to the power of 5. That stays as is. Okay, so these terms actually change signs, right? Let's start with the first term. 12x to the power of 5. Do you see any other terms that have x to the power of 5? Yes, which one? Yes, negative, don't forget the negative, and any other terms that have x to the power 5, Tracy? Positive 7x to the power 5. Okay, so let's write those first. Those are my like terms. X to the power 5 minus, I can put a number 1 in front of that, negative 1 minus 1x to the power 5 plus 7x to the power 5. Okay, we're done with our x to the power 5. What's the next term? Pia? Negative 6x to the power 4. Any other terms that have x to the power 4? Okay, so we have negative 6x to the power 4 minus 5x to the power 4. Any other terms with x to the power 4? Nope. And the last term, plus 18x to the power of 3. Any other terms that have x to the power of 3? 4x to the power of 3. Okay, so we've just collected our like terms. Now simplify, add or subtract them. Okay, so what's 12? Take away 1. 12 take away 1. 11 plus 7. 18. Please don't forget to include the sign. It's negative 6 take away 5. Negative 6 take away 5 is negative 11. X to the power of 4. Okay, good. 18 plus 4 is positive 22, x to the power of 3. And we are finished.